if Michael Caine is in the movie, Nolan loves to play a game called Did You Know Michael Caine is Old? Hello and welcome to Made the Review with You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
And I'm Nick. And today we are going to talk about some of Christopher Nolan's films. We are gearing up for the Odyssey that comes out here next month. And we are going to focus on 6 films in particular from Nolan, although nothing is off the table. The 6 films we're going to focus on are going to be Memento, The Prestige, Dark Knight, Dunkirk, Tenet, and Oppenheimer. Again, nothing's off the table. We're just going to have a little bit of focus on those. Our 2 main topics today are going to be how Nolan uses time to tell a story, and also how Nolan uses obsession within characters to drive the narrative. These are 2 huge themes in a lot of Nolan's films, and so we're going to get into that today. We're going to start with time. Joe, what do you got?
Time to talk about time. Yeah, I think for so many of us who love Christopher Nolan, if Memento was the first movie you ever saw by him, then you understand this man's own obsession with time. It is one of my favorite things that he experiments with in all of his films, and I do mean all of his films. Memento, it's pretty obvious when you look at the narrative and you see how the story is being told out of order. Memento, of course, if you're not familiar, follows the story of Leonard Shelby, who has short term memory loss, and he becomes a sort of detective in his own life. And as we're piecing together the puzzle pieces of his life about how his wife was murdered and how he's hunting down her killer, we're receiving the story in 2 different orders, backwards and forwards. And we're ultimately coming to one specific point of the movie. It's the beginning, or really the middle of both stories coming together at once. You know, we get one section of the story in black and white, the other section of the story in color. And it's not until black and white fades into the color where the story finally meets up together and all the pieces come together. So I think he does this for multiple reasons, right? Um, and Memento, obviously, I think he's trying to disorient the viewer the same way that Leonard Shelby, our detective, as it were, in this story, is disoriented all the time. But here's the thing, Nick. I think he uses that sense of being disoriented, and he being Christopher Nolan, I think he uses that in almost every one of his movies to mess with the viewers and being receiving these sorts of scenes, not necessarily forwards and backwards, but non-linearly, right? I'm sure that you have a few movies in particular that you are fond of where he messes with this.
Yeah, that's a great call out and great summary of Memento. It's immediately I have to mention Tenet because you're talking about forwards and backwards storytelling, and Tenet is like
Literally.
basically it's basically like Memento on steroids, right? Like Memento, very early Nolan film. At the beginning of Memento, we see this like scene where he's essentially, a reverse shooting a gun, which looks like a scene from Tenet, which then comes out many years later. So in many cases, maybe a precursor to another story he would eventually tell. So Tenet comes to mind, right?
Well, yeah,
Dunkirk,
that's a great example because, like,
yeah,
in the actual story, they use that technology to disorient the enemy, right? I mean,
right.
like, there are special principles of being shot by a reverse bullet, but also it disorients everyone who they come across because they don't know how to combat that, right? So it's actually within the universe disorienting them.
Right, exactly. And another one that comes to mind to me is Dunkirk, just on in the
Mm,
way that the movie jumps from different like stretches of time where these
yeah,
like actual scenes are taking place, right? Like 1 hour or one what is it? 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week.
a week.
Um, which like so that movie is jumping around all the time, and in some cases you're not sure if you're in the 1 day or 1 week timeline. Sometimes you're in both, just different things going on. Um, so that would be another one where we've got these different, uh, just like confusion, if you will, right, to like manipulate how time is telling the story.
My favorite example of this though, is it's probably The Prestige, and The Prestige probably wouldn't come to mind for many people as far as like manipulation of time, right? Because that's not really what that movie's about. But that's a big part of that movie because you're receiving two different timelines at once, right? It's a magician reading one magician's journal, and then while that magician's reading that journal, he's reading about the other magician reading his own journal, right? So like we get these two different timelines going on, almost like Nolan is playing like the cup game, right? Where he has like the answer of like Christian Bale's character and like his twin, right? He
Yeah.
has that answer in plain sight, but he's putting it under a cup and he's shuffling the timelines around like, hey, don't pay attention to this. Look over here, like a magician, right? Like that's literally what he's doing.
Right. And leaving subtle clues for you so that you're not going to really notice it in the moment, but those subtle clues are obvious when you go back and rewatch the movie or think back after you've seen it, right? Like the subtle clues in The Prestige like come to mind as well, just with the relationship between Borden and the wife, and then the twin and the wife, right? And all these the different juxtaposition there with him loving her one day and not loving her the next, and you're like you just think
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what a horrible guy, and then you find out later like, oh no, that's the trick, right? And so you've
Mhm.
got that juxtaposition and that craziness going on in the Prestige, and then really what it just leaves us with Oppenheimer.
Well, there is one more that I wanted to throw in there because I think the Prestige
Please,
is a great segue to it, and that's The Dark Knight.
Why so serious?
Again, this is another movie that you would
yeah,
not think of as far as like time goes, but Nolan uses it a little differently here, and this is going to be a good segue into Oppenheimer, where he uses time to build suspense, right? So I want to remember those two principles: to disorient and to build suspense, right? So the scene, spoilers, I guess, if you haven't seen The Dark Knight 2008,
boo,
go watch it. It's one of the best superhero movies of all time. The scene where the Joker has revealed that Harvey and Rachel are in two different warehouses, and they're going to have to make a choice on which one they're going to save because the bombs are going to go off in these warehouses, right? And Batman, believing that he's heading toward the Rachel house, heads over there. So we start getting this montage of scenes to start disorienting us. All the while, we are waiting for a bomb to go off. And it almost feels like we can feel the seconds going by as the scene is building up toward this, right? And of course, this is all misdirection because Batman has been misinformed about which warehouse he is heading to. He's accidentally gone to save Harvey, which is what the Joker was counting on, right? And this is a huge shock. I remember being shocked by this in the theaters.
yep,
And then to watch the actual bomb go off and Rachel dies.
yeah. Uh, just the tension that you mentioned is honestly, we're going to get to Oppenheimer, but it immediately the tension part made me think of Interstellar when we're on Miller's planet,
Oh,
right? And
absolutely.
you've got that like drawn out tension. You've got the music just ticking, and you've even got like specific ticking being used in the score to map out minutes or hours passed on this planet, right? When you realize that, they just got there. Miller only died an hour ago, but Miller got there 10 years ago in like Earth time or whatever that was. Like
Yeah.
just an incredible tension building in Interstellar. A very similar thing in Oppenheimer with some tension in the end, right? When the Trinity test is actually complete after the bomb is dropped and creates this explosion, we get this like long
The
drawn out,
dilation.
yeah, we get this silence of everyone just in awe watching the mushroom cloud, and then eventually, boom, here comes the sonic wave, essentially. So another great use of tension in Oppenheimer as well.
Oppenheimer is another great example about how both of those tools, like in his toolkit for how to use time, to disorient as well as to build tension. I mean, the Trinity test is, of course, like a everything's a masterclass these days, but like, my God, if that's
Yeah.
not a masterclass in building tension, I don't know what is. Because here's the thing, it's history, right? We all know that the bomb goes off, and yet I will always remember watching that scene in a movie theater
Mhm.
and not being able to breathe while waiting for this thing to go off. And like you said, Tower of Fire. And I almost forgot that the actual shockwave was coming.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
exactly.
like
Go
I
ahead.
said, two parts of the toolkit, right? Because
Yep.
that was building the tension. But meanwhile, once again, you have two different timelines going on, where you have the fission timeline and the fusion timeline, right? Where we're learning about how Oppenheimer, while at the same time discovering the physics for how this bomb is even possible in this unseen quantum world, we're also seeing, and the whole theme of this movie, the chain reactions that are already happening as he's discovering the science in the future, he's dealing with the social repercussions of that science. And of course, all of that is building on this conversation between him and Einstein way in the beginning of the movie. Robert Downey Jr.'s character believes that this is something about him. That's what we're led to believe because of his ego. Once again, we're being misdirected, especially as we get to see the course of events of revenge between the two men and the obsession they have toward each other. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, leading up to what actually happened in that conversation, which is Oppenheimer revealing that he fears that the chain of events, the chain reaction of destroying the entire planet by splitting the atom, well, it wasn't actually igniting the atmosphere. It was igniting a future on fire that they have yet to experience, right? Uh, and of course, we get that vision of the future. Just another tool in the toolkit for Nolan's box of time.
Right. Yeah. This is a great call out. And also, if you're ready, a great segue to Obsession. Um,
What are you obsessed?
yeah.
Sorry, that was terrible. Uh,
Get out of
yeah,
here.
I think Oppenheimer is probably a great segue into
Yeah.
this topic.
Because you mentioned, right? Like, obsession is such a big part of the character arcs and building in Nolan, in all of Nolan's films, right? And Oppenheimer is a great example of this, right? Like Robert Oppenheimer, obsessed with physics and figuring out how to build this bomb, right? Beat everyone else in the world at creating this thing first. But within that movie, you've also got the obsession of Robert Downey Jr.'s character, right? Like
Strauss, I remembered it. It's
Strauss,
Strauss.
thank you. Strauss like is obsessed with himself and his success, and he doesn't care who he has to put down, in this case Oppenheimer, to get to where he wants to be, right? And you just got this like great narrative of obsession within that film. and
It's it's it's
yeah,
it's really it is this character flaw, I think, that Nolan tends to. He and his brother, Jonathan. We don't want to leave him out. He's a writer for a lot of these films. Um, I think it's a character trait that they tend to latch on into characters who are like great men, right? Or men who have like these impressive skills that go beyond human, right? Whether it's Oppenheimer and his knowledge of theory and physics, or if we're talking about The Prestige, what is it? Broder?
Borden.
Borden, thank you. Christian Bale's character, Borden,
Yeah,
as well as, and help me out with this, Hugh Jackman's character.
Robert Angier.
There we go, Angier and Borden, and the obsession that they have with each other in trying to outdo each other, right?
Mhm.
We this not among our six films here, but like in Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio, Cobb, he's obsessed with what happened to his wife. He's obsessed with trying to get back to his kids, and it ends up compromising the mission in several horrible ways, right?
Right.
Uh, Honestly, we can find this layer of obsession in almost, no, actually, in every single one of Nolan's movies. That it tends to happen to these people who are so skilled and so great at what they do, but at the cost of some aspect of their humanity, right?
Right. Yeah, this is a great point. And to kind of transition to, adding on to this with another film, right? We've got The Dark Knight. Obviously, there is some serious obsession going on between not just Batman, but also the Joker, right? We've got
Right.
Batman obsessed with justice, Joker
Harvey
obsessed
Dent,
with chaos.
yeah.
And they're,
Harvey Dent and his obsession with
yeah,
fairness, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, each character really is obsessed in their own way. I mean, that's The Dark Knight maybe is the ultimate obsession of characters out of all
Right, and
these films.
it's to each one of their downfalls, right?
Yeah,
The Joker is like you said, he's obsessed with chaos. I would also argue, I mean, he keeps saying that, right? He's such a little son of a bitch. He keeps saying, "Oh, I'm an agent of chaos." You know what it is? He has a huge ego, and he just wants to be right, and this is his downfall, right? He's obsessed with being right about the argument that all people at their core are bad, which is why he can't see that he's gonna fail with his boat experiment at the end,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And Batman being, having a better tap on the city, he's like, "No, dude, it's not going to work out that way. Trust me." Right? But to your point, Batman is obsessed, right? With a couple different things. He's obsessed with justice, right? And trying to avenge his parents. He's obsessed with the future that he could have with Rachel. And I think in ways, uh, they both of those things end up blinding him. And he ends up losing Rachel in the end as a result of this, right? Of being obsessed with that future and Batman coming to an end. Um, but yeah, Gordon, I think you could even make the argument
yeah.
of his obsession. No, the end. We have to save Dent. I have to save Dent. Right. One of my favorite lines of the whole movie. Um, and his obsession of the sacrifice that he puts on. The dude faked his own death.
Yep.
And tricked his wife and kids.
Yeah.
If she didn't divorce him, oh my gosh, we need Dark Knight 4 so I can know what happened A with Robin and B what happened with Gordon's love life.
Dark Knight 4. You mean Batman 4. Anyway, so
I guess it would be Dark Knight 3 technically.
because we're talking about like obsessed characters and wives, Memento and Leonard Shelby. This
Oh
is
God, this is the
heartbreaking
ultimate obsession. This
This
is
is
the ultimate
heartbreaking
obsession.
extension, right? Like he's so obsessed with finding his wife's killer that he creates this system that makes him one forget that he is the one who actually did this all, right? And he's just in this loop. He's in this time loop, right? To kind of bring us home to the beginning of our episode with time being a key. He's just obsessed and put himself in this time loop to protect himself from facing the truth every day for the
Yeah.
first time because he's got this memory loss, right? So instead, he has kind of created this obsession of finding out who his wife's killer is, knowing he will never be able to find it out because he is the one.
Right. Right. He has decided to manipulate his own memory, and in
Right.
a very literal way, he is lying to himself actively to create his own his own fiction, right?
Yep.
Which if we really want to get meta with it, I think that's the Nolans actually like saying that this is what we all do, right? We all do this to a certain degree. Obviously, Leonard Shelby's case is a lot different because he has to actually take physical precautions in order to manipulate himself and his actions,
Right.
right? He decides that he's going to kill John G. Well, there's so many John G's in the world, right? And anyone could technically, he could make anybody a John G, including maybe someone who just happened to piss him off, right? And he's going to form all the clues to make sure he believes at the end of the day, this new guy is my new John G, right? So his revenge spree will always keep going. He's obsessed with revenge.
Yep. Great.
I'm curious, Nick. So we have two other movies here as far as like our six that we're talking about of
Yeah.
really great case examples of Nolan's uh, A, time, and then B, obsession tools, right? Um, I'm curious about what you would say for Dunkirk. I know that you're a big fan.
Yeah. So for Dunkirk, well, the obsession is like survival, really.
Mm,
The whole movie is about survival. That whole situation is purely about survival, and you've got all of these characters who that's the only thing they have to hold on to, right? It's like, how do we survive? Um, Granted, thinking about it more, right? Of course, like the army or the soldiers rather, they're obsessed with survival. The citizens from Britain who are on the boats, their own personal boats, they're obsessed with really survival as well, but they're more obsessed with getting as many soldiers alive back, right? So there's still a survival loop there, but it's a little bit more obsession towards like success rather than survival, I would say. And yeah, I don't know. Did you have another thought on Dunkirk?
I agree pretty much with everything that you're saying there. I think you can almost make one other argument here of I mean I think you're right. I think obsession or survival is the obsession here, right? I would say like his other movies, I think we see it to a much deeper degree. But I think I could point out two other cases here. The first one being I think it's in the 1 week timeline. Where it starts with the boys on the mole, and we get this character who's silent and very deliberately Nolan is making us think that maybe this guy cannot be trusted, right? And the other characters quietly start suspecting the same thing until like that really boils over when they're in the boat, right? So I think I could make a case there, especially since it's a week long,
Yeah.
that at least one of those characters was not going to let this go. Luckily, it is not really to any of their detriment, except for they almost killed this guy. So at least in that regard, I cannot say that obsession really like harmed anybody like in the long run.
Right.
If anything, obsession
Well,
saved these guys, right? Because it's the Brits who are trying to get their guys, right? The government, but it's not the government who comes to save the day, right? It's literally the British people who show up to save them, to execute
yeah.
this amazing miraculous save.
There is the British boy that does die from.
Yes, correction.
Yeah, I would say that that's obsession negatively affecting the character.
Yeah,
Because he did not have to go.
Killian
They
Murphy's
actually asked
character.
him. Yeah, they asked him to stay behind, but he was so obsessed with helping, right? And like having his own story within the war that he went anyway, and unfortunately ended up dying. And then the reason for it too, right? Like the soldier who gets rescued, played by Cillian Murphy, he's obsessed with not going back to the beach,
Right.
and his obsession to not go back leads to the scuffle that kills this British boy. So I think
There you go.
that would be the biggest negative aspect of obsession in Dunkirk.
Right, right, right. Yeah, if you're looking for the cost of obsession, there you go. The
There
cost
you
of
go.
staying alive.
Okay, yeah.
Um, but
Tenet.
yeah, I mean, even in a movie like Dunkirk, there you go.
Yeah.
Tenet. Now, this one was interesting. Nick and I had a conversation about Tenet in the beginning, and usually, I think obsession in these movies, we tend to find it in our protagonists. In The Dark Knight, like we said, we found it in a lot of our characters. But I think in Tenet, it's actually a good example of it's not the obsession within the protagonist, literally. It is the obsession of the antagonist, right? It is our Russian character who
Andre.
has decided, yes, thank you, who is so obsessed with gosh so many things, his power, his wife, his ego, his life, right?
Yeah.
He won't let her go because she belongs to him,
He's
right?
also
he's
obsessed with
obs-
time
and he's obsessed with time.
to bring us full circle for both these
It almost
conversations.
sounds like, Nick, you are talking about Christopher Nolan himself, who is a man. Let's go ahead and say it. I mean, I'm a little biased, but a man of great skill who is obsessed with his craft and obsessed with time.
Yeah, it's a great it's a great summary. That is Nolan. All these films, I think, are have a little bit of Nolan's personality in them, right?
Like he has such a distinct style, right?
Yeah,
Especially making those characters who are so obsessive, using time in different ways to help facilitate the narrative, right? Either to disorient or to create that mystery or to build the tension, right? He's so good at a lot of those things,
hiding things in
and
plain sight as well as another
hiding
one.
things in plain sight.
Crazy,
I think we're definitely going to see that in the upcoming movie too, right? We're
right?
going to see that in the Odyssey, which is interesting because it's not a movie I would immediately think that you could apply the Nolan style to. But in
Right.
thinking about Odysseus and his wife and his son,
Hmm.
you know what? I could see how might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's very interesting to
Also,
kind
a
of
man obsessed about going home.
right. Yeah, someone's obsessed. Yeah, there'll be obsession for sure. That's maybe what drew him to telling the story, right? Like there's a very clear motivation in Odysseus's character and his motivation for going home, right? There's obsession in multiple characters within that story in the Odyssey, and that maybe is what drew him to tell this story, right? Because a lot, until recently, Nolan stories were pretty much written by the Nolan brothers and original stories, right? But recently
Yeah.
we've had Dunkirk based on a true story, Oppenheimer, obviously biography based on a true story, and now we've got the Odyssey coming out, which is based on a really old story, not necessarily a true story, right? This is like an ancient story that's been passed down for a
I mean, I
long
agree
time.
with you. It's not
But
it's not of history, right? But it is
right,
of ancient art, and it is so well
yeah,
known by
right,
most of the world.
right. So it kind of fits with the whole Oppenheimer and Dunkirk theme, right? Where something that's like known by the rest of the world. So it's a very interesting, but it's obviously a little bit different, and it's very interesting that Nolan chose this to be like the next story that he tells. Um, I'd love to know how he decided to pick it, right? It's such a fascinating thought, but um, certainly we'll get some obsession. And clearly, the Odyssey spans over what is it, 20 years that he is away from home, I think.
I think it's about right.
So there will be some time involved as well.
I mean, there you go, right? It's almost like he's finding his obsession of telling story with time or experimenting with time through cinema. He's finding it now in like non-fictional ways, right? Or at
Right.
least in this case, ways that have been well established throughout human history. The Odyssey being one of the most ancient forms of poetry and art. Um, and yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to there. Like you said, a lot to do with time, and certainly several characters who can be obsessed. I mean, it's got Nolan written all over it.
Absolutely. Did you have any final thoughts?
Only that we didn't express enough about the time dilation in Inception, but you know what? That one writes itself. Saito was down there for what, 20 years in the lowest of dream layers.
Yeah.
Nolan will just find ways to explore time dilation in
Yeah.
like every way possible.
I mean, there's also Interstellar too, right? Like, but
Right.
we've done separate reviews on those films. So with that said, feel free to go back to our YouTube
Yeah.
channel, watch those episodes on Interstellar and Inception, follow us on Threads. Definitely keep track of us here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's where we are going to be coming at you the most. Give us a like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think about these Nolan films and what you were most looking forward to with the Odyssey coming out. And until next time, friends.
May the review be with you.
Peace.